Hello, and welcome to Drunk Fantasy. I'll be your host, Alias Pax, and as is tradition, I have drank one entire bottle of blueberry mead, and I'm here to tell you some stories. So, tonight's stories involve the Gods of Vaeleen. When I was first presented with a picture of the Gods of Vaeleen, I was presented with something that looked like this, which in fact was stapled to a piece of wood at the LARP. And I looked at that and went, that is a mess. I don't know what that is. So I took it upon myself to reorder things, according to the stories that I have heard. So here we go. It all began at the beginning with Elvire. He wasn't known as Elvire back then because he didn't have a name. And so he was Elvire. And Elvire, there it is. Elvire, who's with his interlinked circles as a symbol, decided, you know what? I'm gonna make some stuff. And so Elvire made Colivir and Relevant. And they were only created like a millisecond apart, but Colivir was firstborn and Relevant was secondborn. And he not happy about that. And that's important later. So Alvir said to his two kids, you know what? Why don't you make some stuff? Because I'm curious about what you can do. And they said, cool, let's do this. So Relevant No, Colivir said, let's make some light. And that made light and darkness. And there it went. And Relevant went, you know what? I'm going to make a kid of my own. And he going to make a place for other things to live on. Because, Relevant is tired and wanted a nap. So Relevant created Dragor. And Dragor said, cool, let's make some planets to live inside this light and darkness nonsense that we got going on. And at this point, Alvir looked at what was going on and went, you know what? Oh, that's cool. And he went off to do whatever it is that he do, because he Alvir, and we don't know what's going on. So Dragor started making some planets. And he made lots of them. And eventually he made what he thought was the most perfect planet. And that planet is called Vaeleen, which is important because that's where we is. So Dragor said, you know what? I need some help. And since my dad is having a nap, I'm going to make some helpers to help me make this planet even more perfect. Chef kiss. And so he made a whole bunch of kids, but I think in the story it only names 4. It names Creator, and Korith, and Galena, and Volan. And he said, let's make some stuff. And they made Vaeleen, and it was really good. And Drygor said, hey, look at this thing I made. And he showed it to Relevant and Colivir, and they're like, that's pretty good. That's a good planet right there. Dragor went, oh, by the way, I also made my kids. And Relevant went, what? No, you're not allowed to do that. And Dragor said, but I learned it from you. And Relevant said, no, I am jealous, and that's not what you do. So he imprisoned those 4 kids inside the earth of Vaeleen, and everybody was sad. And Relevant was like, that's because I'm the one that can only make other things. So there. And Colivir said, you know what, that's really sad because I looked at the top of this planet and I made real kinds of pretty things and flowers and trees and whatnot. And now nobody's going to be able to see what I made because Relevant locked away all of the kids. And so Colivir, she began to cry. And when her tears hit Vaeleen, they turned into elves. And she was like, look, I made some babies. And that was neat. And Relevant said, hold up now. That's not good because I want some kids of my own. And Relevant, you know what he did? He made dragons. And dragons wanted to get to the gems and the gold on the inside of the earth, and so they started doing what dragons do, and they started destroying everything on the top. And Colivir was like, that's bullshit is what that is, because why is he all the dragons destroying everything that's underneath there? And we got to fight against this. So Kolivir went around her brother and partnered up with Dragor, and they said, you know what, we got to make an army to fight against these dragons. And Dragor was like, why don't we use your elves? And Kolivir's like, no, my babies. And so the two of them together made some humans. And so that human army fought against the dragons army, and guess what? The humans won. And so then the dragons were defeated, but not all the dragons, just like everybody except the matriarchs, I think. And then Relevant was locked away in God jail, and that's how that goes. And at that point, Elvir came back because that's what he do. And he was like, you know what, everybody doing good. And by the way, Dragor, I agree with you. These other gods, they're pretty cool. We're gonna bring them back. And so he brought them back. And Creator and Corinth and Galena and Volun, they were all freed from whatever their prison were inside, and they're pretty chill. And Kolivir was looked down and said, oh, look at my baby elves and the humans. They're living on the earth, and that's all pretty chill. So we're going to make all of these other gods for them to worship. I'll let you read that because there's a lot of gods right there, and they're all really important in their own way, and that is not covered in the scope of tonight's story because that's how that works. And at that point, Dragor's like, you know what? If Colivir's got elves and we got humans together, you know what? I'm gonna also make some dwarfs. And they're going to fill out the rest of the dwarven pantheon because dwarf beliefs are strong as well. And so they make all of these other gods, of which there are a lot of them. So there was some peace at the time because that's what happens when you've got some immortal elves and some immortal humans. But as is wont to happen, things began to fall out of balance because Vaeleen is finite, and having immortal creatures that populate as quickly as they do, that's not going to do good for the ecosystem. So Elvira looked at all that nonsense and went, you know what, this is not going to do. We're going to make some people mortal. And so Kolivir looked at Elvira and went, my babies! And so the elves are still immortal. They only have children at a very reduced rate. But the humans, they got struck with mortality. Dwarves, they're mortal too. Dragons, pretty sure they're mortal too, but I don't know that. Don't quote me on that one because I don't actually know. And so in order to make sure everybody is mortal, Alvir went forth and created another one, Garrick. Garrick is the god of death. And Garrick looked out and went, what hot mess has awaited me? Look at all this nonsense that is going on around here. And so Garrick realized that there was too much to handle. I mean, he do what he do because he a god, and he a good god because things gotta die so that other things can live. But he realized that he needed some help. So Garrick, he made his own kids. He made Kosine and Korvar and Belar. Kosine, god of plagues. I mean, that's pretty powerful and stuff, and, I suppose it's necessary, so you do what you gotta do. Korvar, peaceful death. I like that. That's chill. Korvar got a good vibe. I can support that. Belar, violent death. Not a chill vibe. Don't know how much to support that, but you know what? Necessary, I suppose, in the whole ecosystem of death. So, now things can die. And that's important because, well, that applies to the world as such. Well, Kosine, he looked around and he said, you know what? Things can die because of plagues. You get a plague, and you get a plague, and you get a plague over here. You know what? I really like this. I think you're all gonna get plagues. And Korvar looked around and went, hey, Dad, there are a lot of things that are dying of plagues. And Garrick looked down and went, shit. Alright, so we got Kosine. He seems to like his job a little too much. Cool. We gotta try to stop a god. Garrick so went back up to Dragor and Kolivir and went, so how do we stop a god? And they went, I don't know. How do we stop a god? And they all went up to Alvir and they went, how do we stop a god? And Alvir's like, well, it sounds like you gotta pool your resources there. It sounds like a you problem, not a me problem. Because everybody realized that Kosine was really powerful because if everybody believes that they're all gonna die from a plague, then that's a lot of belief power, and that makes him really strong as a god. So, Dragor and Kolivir are like, I think we're going to need some extra help. So they took Relevant out of God jail and said, hey, we need help putting Kosine back into God jail. And Relevant's like, cool, let's do this. So they all work together, like everybody worked together, and they put Kosine into God jail. That's good because Cosine will gone, otherwise destroy the Earth. So Relevan's like, cool, I'm free now. I hate all of you, but I'm classy about it because he relevant and hate has a place inside all of the other emotions. So Relevant started having his kids, which is like all of this line right here. But when Relevant got to Theverin, the god of chaos, Theverin looked around, looked at what was going on, flipped him the bird, and said, that's not how this is going to roll. And Theverin, in order to make a grand exit, because he just that extra, he killed one of Relevant's favorite green dragons, made it into some armor, because chaos don't belong to no evil, no good, no nothing. Chaos is chaos. And so that's not an eyeball, as someone once said to me. That's actually a green dragon scale, is Theverin's symbol. So Theverin said, deuces, I'm out. And so he's Theverin, and he just do whatever he want to do. But I put him in this line because, well, Relevant created him, and well, as we all know, you can't control your kids, because that's not how this works. Cool. So there we are. That's how that goes so far. Now, where do we go from here? So then the northern people on Vaeleen, right? Vaeleen is the planet. Wait, let's go over to the next one. Where's my? Oh no, I gotta go back out. Let's back out. All right. Cool. Here's Vaeleen. Look, it's the world. It's that planet that Dragor created. So here's the world where we are. And so the game takes place in Telesia. See this continent here in the center? This actually takes place like right there-ish. Maybe right there. I think I'm pretty close. And so when I say the northern people, I'm talking about Solaria. Let's zoom in on that. Let's go over to the next one. Boom! There's Solaria, that northern continent. So Telesia. Yeah, see, I was real close, right there next to those trees. New Valak, that's where the LARP takes place. So New Valak, that's our favorite town. We love it here. Solaria. Note how Solaria, that continent right there, looks real close to this other god whose name is Solarin. There we go. So Solarin took all the tribes of peoples that lived up in the north. They were pretty warmongering. And Solarin went, dudes, it don't have to be like this. We can all be one people and fight against all of these other continents that have much more temperate climates and thus are able to advance in weaponry probably faster than we are. So if we unite, then we could be as powerful, if not more powerful, than all of these other bitches. And you know what? He was right. So Solaria is now one unified people because of Solarin. Oh, I went too far. Because of Solarin. And so that's why Solarin is the god of honor and war. Look, let me zoom back in there so you can read that. So Solarin is the god of honor and war. And he pretty cool. So we like him. Cool. So later on, that's when Alvir looked down and realized that like Kolivir and Relevant and Dragor were all sort of using all of the mortals as their pawns. So people would be predetermined in destiny, you know, even before they were born, even before their grandparents were born. And Alvira went, you know what? That sounds like cheese. I don't like that. That's not good. You know what? Let's shake things up a bit. Let's keep everybody on their toes. And so he created Fahalisa because he wanted to say, you know what? This whole destiny nonsense, we got to stop that. And so here, have Goddess of Luck and maybe a little bit of chaos, but far more of luck because people get to make their own choices. And that's cool. And that's why Fahalisa, she likes the truth because, you know what? If the dice roll snake eyes, they roll snake eyes. She not going to bang on the table and turn it into 11 because it's Fahalisa and she likes having the truth be what it is and luck being what it is. You roll those dice, you take a chance. There it is. So that's what Fahalisa do. And all that is pretty important, except for we haven't gotten towards the end over here. Fedor. Oh, how do we get to Fedor? Well, we gotta go through the rest of the story on this. Whoop, wrong way. Woohoo, drunk. It goes in, it goes out. Alright, so, oh no, it goes back to the wrong thing. Okay, so, here we go. Turns out, about 275 years ago, in terms of game time, that there was a group of adventurers, because adventurers ruin everything. We all know this. It's just fact. It's how it works. And they got into some kind of crazy temple, and they saw these priests and some oracles doing whatever kind of magical spell they were doing. And instead of asking, hey, what are you doing? They decided, you know what? These dudes look shady. Let's just kill them. So a wizard threw a tornado in there, and it killed all of the priests and oracles from doing what they were doing, and they all died. That adventurer went deuces and went on his way. Cool. You know what those priests and oracles were doing? They were keeping the seal shut on God Jail that was keeping Cosine imprisoned. So you know what happened 275 years ago? Cosine got out. Like I said, adventurers ruin everything. So Cosine got out, and he decided right then and there that it wasn't that he was just going to inflict all the mortals with plagues. He were mad, and he was going to infect everybody with the plague, including all of the gods. Let's just destroy everything, because that's what I do. I'm mad. I'm going to throw a temper tantrum. That's just what happens. Cool. So the gods were like, you know what? What are we gonna do? How are we gonna do this? And so they all started working together, and they're gonna start trying to fight Cosine. So they all went to the plane of war, not like the material plane where we all exist here in the world. They went to the plane of war to have their battle. That was 275 years ago. Everybody did this except for Fedor. Oh, Fedor, because Fedor was created by the dwarves in order to increase the luster of gold. That sounds like a lot of greedy shit to me. And so Fedor then started moving up towards the surface into the humans, and they were like, oh, well, if he increases gold, then clearly it's yellow. And you know what else is yellow? The sun. You know what else is yellow? Wheat. So you know what we're going to do? We're going to pray to Fedor to make the sun and our harvests bigger. And so obviously he's a god of fertility. That's clearly how this works. And Fedor was like, cool, if that's what you gotta believe, that's what you gotta believe. And so what was founded was the green circle, and for the bounty of the natural world, where I said, look, if we pray to Fedor, he makes our harvests bigger. Look at that nonsense. Fedor is great. He makes everything bigger and better, and we love Fedor. But Fedor wasn't fighting a war against Cosine. Fedor had a grander plan. Fedor went, you know what? Look at all these people. They can start believing in me. Because you know what happened? All those clerics or priests or Templars or whatever other people were praying to all the gods. You know what? Those gods weren't picking up the phone. It just went straight to voicemail on all of that because they were busy. They were fighting against Cosine because that's what you gotta do. But Fedor, he wasn't there. He was saying, you know what? I'm gonna poach all of these followers because I'm not gonna go up and fight that war. That's for pansies. I'm gonna stay down here and work on the earths. And so the green circle began to grow and grow, and everybody's like, look, Fedor picks up the phone. Let's keep praying to him. But some people were like, you know what? Why do we got to limit ourselves to the natural world? Why don't we be the masters of the whole world and everything in it? Let's just keep gathering all the power we can. And so they founded the red circle of Fedor. Why's Fedor's symbol a circle? I don't know. I feel like Alvir had that nonsense before because he's got two circles, but Fedor was like, you know what? I only need one because I'm strong enough. That's what I do. Oh no, it's the wrong thing again. Hold on. See, this is the problem that you get with drunk fantasy. There we go. So, and the red circle said it's going to be power over everything. And people were like, you know what? That's not as chill as the green circle. I have little reservations about that. But the red circle still gained power. You know why? Because people are screwed up. And that's what happens. So then there was a dude, a very charismatic dude, who was like, you know what? This red circle ain't working out, and the green circle could be reaching out for more. I am going to found the white circle because look at how superior and pure I am. We will have plenty and wealth and power and all the things. Because when you've got a 25 charisma, you can do shit like that. And so he founded the white circle of Fedor, and his religion spread all across Vaeleen because that's what happens. And so Fedor, as happens when a religion gets that big, it started to go a little bit south because that's what happens. And so it got to the point where Fedor said, you know what? Only my magic is the magic you should use. Anything else from the old pantheon, note the air quotes that I'm putting around that, the old pantheon, it is not acceptable to use. It became downright illegal in some places to use because Fedor was in charge of things. Fedor. You ask anybody else that hangs around New Valek, I'm sure they will give you the same reaction of, Fedor. You know what? Because in some places, still illegal to worship anybody else. Now, recent history, what has happened probably in our lifetimes. It has so happened that you may have seen a whole bunch of falling stars coming out of the sky. What the hell was that? They were big. They made loud booms. They may have made a small tremor in the earth as it fell down to the ground. That was when Alvir realized that the war against Kosine was going not so good. And so he kicked all of the other gods out of the plane of war so that Kosine couldn't outright slaughter them. What does that mean? It means all the other gods were put in a chrysalis and fell from the plane of war into right down into the material plane. They landed on Vaeleen somewhere, and we have to find them and help them remember that they are gods. We've done this for a couple of them. There are a bunch of gods that are already freed out, like Faced, who isn't on this list. Who is the goddess of winter. We freed her. She cool. She chill. Yeah, she's the goddess of winter. That's what she do. Woo, drunk fantasy. So, and Fahalissa, she out. She good. Garrick, god of death. She out. He good. He out. He good. Things like that. We're trying to work with all of the other gods in order to fight against Kosine. That's really what this all boils down to. This whole big long story boils down to all of the gods are now walking the realm among us. They might not be omnipotent anymore, but they still hella powerful. Are walking the world with us, and we are all trying to fight Kosine, the god of plagues, because he is now actively moving against us, and we are trying to figure out where he is so that we can defeat him. We don't know how we're going to defeat him because he that strong, and it took all the gods combined last time to defeat him. And well, we're just getting started on this adventure, and now you are too. And so this has been an episode of Drunk History with Elias, and I hope you enjoyed my drunken ramblings, 10 in one take. And I love you all, and I'll see you soon. Goodbye.